I want to talk about the new DLC for Prey, which is called Prey Mooncrash. Well, I really want to talk about a few fatal flaws it has, but to understand those, first I have to explain how good the game is. A couple of things before I get started. First, I'm going to refer to the base game as Prey and to the DLC as Mooncrash. Second, because the story happens completely distinct from the game in Mooncrash, I won't be spoiling either game. Mooncrash was announced at E3 2018 as one of those available right now announcements, which I love. Mooncrash was revealed to be a side story to Prey. Rather than continuing the story of Morgan Yu and Talos 1, Mooncrash follows the story of a hacker who is running a simulation of Transtar's moon base, Pythias. Mooncrash is a remarkable DLC pack because of its willingness to step away from the formula of the base game. Goals that were taught in Prey, like mastering the environment and planning encounters out ahead of time, are still rewarded, but explored in very different ways. Before we get into how it plays, allow me to briefly set the stage. While Talos 1 in Prey orbited the moon, Pythias is a mining facility built on its surface. Your initial spawn in the Pythias simulation is always in an area simply called the Crater. The crater serves as a hub area for Pythias, containing entrances to the other 3 major areas of the base. It also looks and feels completely different from Prey, a barren, wide-open field with low gravity. Other parts of Pythias are more familiar. The crew annex is very similar to the crew quarters of Talos 1. You have the cafeteria, kitchen, habitation pods, and even a miniature recreation center. Similarly, Pythias Labs is an area that combines most of the research divisions from Prey. There's elements of the hardware labs, neuromod division, and psychotronics here, plus a few interesting new experiments. The most unique new area is Moonworks, where Transtar's Helium-3 mining operation was underway. In addition to looking like nothing else in Prey or Mooncrash, Moonworks is also unique to explore. There's verticality in Moonworks that doesn't really exist elsewhere. Walkways and tunnels crisscross above the ground floor, creating a maze of alternate routes. Looking at the design and state of Moonworks, you get the feeling this was a messy job even before the Typhon broke containment. In Mooncrash, you explore these places with a total of 5 characters, 4 of whom have to be unlocked. As you'd expect, they can each access unique abilities, mostly selected from among the abilities available in Prey. Each character has a unique story mission, which first has to be unlocked by escaping the moon base in a given way. For example, the engineer can't activate her story mission until she escapes using the shuttle. Finally, characters have different default loadouts and stats, but for reasons I'll cover later, these don't matter as much as you might think. Your goal in Mooncrash is to escape from the moon base with each of the 5 characters. The catch is that eventually, all 5 escapes have to be done without resetting the simulation. This means that when you escape or die with one character, the next character spawns in the same world. Any changes one character causes will be seen by the rest. One of the most obvious effects of this is that items you scavenge stay gone. This also means items you leave behind can be used by a future character, but it's not as simple as leaving all the shotgun ammo you find in a box somewhere. After finishing the tutorial, a meter is added to the HUD to measure the corruption level of the simulation. This meter slowly fills as you play. Each time it completely fills, you're alerted that the corruption is increasing. This has a couple of effects on the world. Primarily, the health and strength of creatures is increased, and cleared areas will respawn enemies. There are a few other noticeable effects, like the difficulty of repair and hack tasks increasing. But beyond this, it's hard to determine what's specifically caused by high corruption and what's just RNG. Yes, RNG. Where Prey's world was filled deliberately with items and puzzles, Mooncrash randomizes certain parts of the environment. Item and enemy placements are randomized every time the simulation is reset. Doors can be opened, locked, or broken. The level design of Pythias mostly stays the same, but some stairs and walkways can be destroyed. Some runs you'll even have levels on fire, or filled with radioactive waste. The corruption level can increase up to level 5 and keeps its level between characters. If the meter fills when the corruption is already level 5, the simulation is forced to reset. The time you spend with one character is lost from all future runs. The 3-way balance between your current run, planning future runs, and racing the clock is the core of Mooncrash. You could drop all your equipment for the next character, but you'll want to keep enough supplies on you to survive from your drop point to the escape point. By the way, each escape route can only be used once in a run, so if you drop a load of gear right before you escape, your next character will have to survive all the way from the spawn room to that escape point, then make their way to a fresh escape. Of course, you could just run closer to the spawn and use a storage crate there, but that costs time. how much is the corruption going to rise while you run all the way to the start, then all the way back? In general, you're allowed much more foresight in Mooncrash than in most roguelites, which in turn allows you to make better calculated risks. However, that doesn't make the experience predictable. Like any good roguelite, things will go wrong. You might plan to escape by the Mimic portal, only to discover that power is out in Pythias Labs. Or maybe you'll be afflicted by one of the new status effects added by the DLC. Hemorrhage, for example, causes damage when you jump, sprint, or climb. If you plan to climb to the top of Moonworks and use the mass driver to escape, a hemorrhage might have you reconsidering your options. If that's not enough for you to keep in mind, you also have to consider each different character's unique abilities. Maybe you should play the engineer first to clear the way by repairing broken doors, or save her for later to repair weapons after they've worn out from use. Even with complete map knowledge, it's clear there are enough systems at play to bring true roguelite complexity to Mooncrash, which is why it's a shame the game itself gives you all the tools you need to completely undermine its balance. Upon reaching a certain point in the game, you're gifted a set of powers that all characters can access. Both of these powers summon a companion, a mimic or an operator. The mimic buddy crawls around sniffing out other mimics and is relatively inoffensive. The operator, on the other hand, completely breaks the game, undermining the urgency and resource management the game's based on. At any time and for no cost, you can summon the operator, who works as a flying crate with almost as much storage space as the default inventory. Everything I've said about needing to plan ahead for future characters' runs can firmly be thrown out the window. Simply summon the operator right before escaping Pythias and unload anything useful onto it. Then select a character and summon the operator again. Your whole inventory is waiting for you, without the need to risk traveling to a drop point. You can just pass it between all your remaining characters for free. This saves immeasurable time, but you still have to worry about the corruption level rising, right? Well, not really. This is an item called delayloop.time. It sets back the corruption level of the simulation, which is fine. You can't roll back to a lower level, only delay the next increase. If that were it, there would be no problem with the delay loop. Unfortunately, this is the rare occasion where Prey's immersive sim qualities really cause a problem. The delay loop is treated as an ordinary consumable, which makes it an eligible target for the engineer's reverse engineer ability. This allows you to turn the delay loop into a temporary fabrication plan, meaning you can create as many as you have the materials for. Maybe that doesn't sound so bad, but you can also find a real fabrication plan for the delay loop, which gives every character the opportunity to build them. If you want to play optimally, there's no reason not to perpetually play at the laughably easy Corruption Level 1. There's yet another system that feeds into these problems: loadout purchasing. Any action in Mooncrash, killing an enemy, finding a corpse, unlocking a door, rewards Chasma credits. These credits carry over between all runs and simulation resets, and are used to purchase items to take with you into the next run. Any fabrication plan you find makes that item eligible to be bought during this phase. This means that finding certain fab plans can really ruin the Mooncrash experience. Why not just buy a dozen neuromods or delay loops? Even if those more valuable items were excluded from this system, there's still some issues. Being able to load up on medicine, health packs, and weapons before even entering the simulation really devalues the scavenging, randomized, roguelite aspects of the game. It also has the side effect of making the characters feel less unique. Why would I care that the security officer starts with a shotgun if I'm one fab plan away from making that true for every character? It is possible to play around some of the issues with Mooncrash. You could forbid yourself from using the operator, and from buying or crafting time loops. You could even ignore loadout purchasing altogether. But Arcane wanted there to be progression that persists across simulation resets. Unlocked characters remain available, purchased abilities are still usable, and items are unlocked for purchase. Perhaps a better progression system would be one closer to how research works. Like in Prey, you can scan enemies with the psychoscope to unlock new abilities. But in Mooncrash, these abilities are tied to specific characters, so when an ability is scanned by any character, it is unlocked only for the character who can use it. Instead of being available for purchase, new items could be added to specific characters' loadouts. This would make the characters feel even more unique, and serve as further world building. For example, I could see the director having a stun gun for self-defense. Likewise, it would make perfect sense for the engineer to have access to a glue gun, and so on. Before I finish, I need to address an opposing viewpoint. While I firmly believe that the corruption timer is key to Mooncrash's experience, I've seen plenty of people complaining about its inclusion. Many feel that is antithetical to the experience of Prey, even creating a number of mods to remove it entirely. What I'd like to make clear is that this is an entirely valid response. Mooncrash is a wildly different experience from Prey, but it's still DLC for it. It's completely reasonable to want more of a game from its DLC add-on. The patch for Prey that came out with Mooncrash added a story mode, which tones down overall combat difficulty. I think something like that could be done for Mooncrash, a mode that removes the timer but increases the corruption level for each new character in the same cycle. Conversely, I'd also like to see the current mode of play converted into a more difficult, endless mode. Mooncrash was touted as infinitely replayable, but completing all the Chasma objectives forces the game to end. It would be nice to have a way to continue playing without starting an entirely new game. That's about all I have for today. Thanks for listening. Oh, and don't let my negativity get you down, I really do recommend both Prey and Mooncrash. Plus, now that you've watched this, you know what to avoid, so give it a try.